Hello. Financial services has long been a critical and often leading sector in Australia. While the banking sector itself is largely mature and concentrated, the fintech or financial technologies element is evolving and growing across the region. Globalization of tech and solutions, an increased flow of capital, an environment that supports and encourages startups from product development to mainstream adoption, being situated on the doorstep of Southeast Asia, and the introduction of the world-leading consumer data right sees Australia once again punching well above our weight, according to the latest KPMG FinTech 100 Global Index. On today's panel, we're joined by three market participants representing different perspectives and solutions within the rich tapestry of this expanding landscape. Mark Perry is the Chief Customer Officer at Visa, offering proven industry-leading consumer data rights solutions for data holders, data recipients, and conformance testing. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Jamie. Good to be here.
Thank you. Tanya Ward is the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer of CAPE, the all-in-one spend management platform designing corporate cards to help every business strengthen their cash flow. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, how are you?
Good. And Brenton Charnley, Chief Executive Officer of TrueLayer A&NZ. TrueLayer is a global open banking platform empowering businesses in every industry to create first-class financial experiences. Thank you for joining us, Brenton.
Thanks, Jamie, for having us.
So let's kick off with Mark. We'll fire the first question at you. With the eyes of the world watching our creation and launch of the consumer data right, or our version initially of open banking, what do you think the key differentiators are in comparison to other jurisdictions, such as the United Kingdom?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Look, I think the first one that stands out is that the consumer data right in Australia is economy-wide in Australia. It's not just about banking, although that's how we've started, with the banks being in the ecosystem first. But we're already talking about a deadline for energy companies, which is October next year. We're already starting to talk about the specifications for telcos, and then other industries like insurance and superannuation and loyalty programs have been spoken about as well. And that will give consumers the ability to link all of the data that they might have about different utilities and produce some really interesting insights into how they live their lives and be able to help them then reduce the cost of living. Secondly, I think it's really interesting how Australia's done the security part of the CDR as well. We've taken a really strong security approach. Other jurisdictions have not been quite as strict in certain circumstances. And I think that's a really good way of showing that Australia is very serious about consumer privacy and really the security of this data, which is which is really important to people's lives. And if with that to be breached, then there could be serious consequences. So I think they're two of the main ones. Obviously, we're coming on the coattails of the UK, and we've learned from their experience. For example, bringing many banks into the CDR as quickly as possible, rather than just leaving it to the largest banks, as they have done in the UK. There are just three that I can point to.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Mark. Brenton, obviously TrueLayer being headquartered and founded in the United Kingdom, you would be familiar with, I guess, some of the nuances of the UK and the differences here in Australia. Is there just one area that you two could add that makes the uniqueness of the consumer data right here in Australia?
I mean, I think Mark covered off the key ones. I did hear an interesting insight last week that most of the UK is now looking at Australia going, why don't we have the consumer data right? And we down in Australia going, why don't we have payments and data at the same time? So it's really interesting. You always want what you can't have. And New Zealand's coming soon, and let's hope New Zealand get it right the third time round. But I think the biggest difference for me is the fact that we don't have payments yet. The banking and finance is being done in the UK. Coverage is a big issue, as Mark has talked about from the start, with not all the banks on the rails, so to speak. And Australia has done well, albeit with some large exemptions that have been given out to not hit certain deadlines. And I'm sure, Mark, you've got some things to say about compliance. But I mean, I think they're the big call out for me, which is a different approach. I think what's been done really well is the government has mandated that, as to Mark said, about the banks having to come on the journey and to make sure that they are providing them. But I think where there needs to be greater impact is some more enforcement of those obligations to make sure that the quality and coverage is there when we need it. So, players like TrueLayer, we can't provide data to our customers unless the data is actually provided from the banks in a reliable and consistent format. So let's hope we can get some more traction in that space.
Absolutely. You make a wonderful point, though, Brenton, about the difference between the read and write access, or action initiation, as we're calling it here. And I see a lot of jurisdictions are really introducing the two together. And I think Australia is unique in saying they wanted to get the first part bedded down before introducing the second. But we'll move along. Tanya, you have had a long and distinguished career in banking and lending before making the decision to join a fintech, an often scary concept for some. Why do you believe that fintechs are actually leading the evolution of financial services in this region?
Yeah, great question. Thanks. For me, having been with Westpac for a number of years, there was it's just a very large corporation that's built on a legacy of business models and opportunities. And I think really the appeal of fintech is the agility and the ability to really look and offer quite niche and bespoke offerings to the customer segments, and be able to expand at that granular level to a wide range of customers because of that ability to really get down into the granular and the aspects of really understanding and tailoring the solution because of the foundations that the solution is built upon, to be able to tailor it to each and every one of those customers. So I think that's kind of, for me, the big appeal is just the ability to really pivot and change and assess the market and the customer needs, and be able to continue to tailor and tweak the products in almost real time because of the nature of the infrastructure and the frameworks to which the companies are built on.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Tanya. And Australia is, as we all know on this call, is an incredible place for companies, I guess, to sandbox and test their solutions maybe before taking them to other parts of the world. Which leads me to my next question to Brenton. TrueLayer's done the opposite. So TrueLayer obviously founded and highly successful in the UK. I think I saw the other day that 55% of all affiliates or agents in the UK come up underneath TrueLayer. So why do you think TrueLayer chose to expand into Australia and New Zealand at this time?
I'd like to say because they were looking for me, but I don't think that was the right answer. But I mean, the first and foremost is regulations, right? The rules of financial services have been set in a certain way, highly complex, highly centralized, and difficult to access. And of course, open banking regulations changing around the world is opening up the ability for that to happen. And Australia was the next one of the next countries that did that. That's number one. There's great ties between UK and Australia from a government participation and industry standards, and we were part of the UK-Australia FinTech Bridge, and that was another part that helped us come over. A lot of similarity between UK and Australian industry. There's so much collaboration, and obviously we are still part of the Commonwealth, so that definitely helps. Similar language as well, and then the other one is the FinTech ecosystem. I was part of the FinTech when it started in Australia. It was very much, I used to call the school disco, where you had the FinTechs over in one corner and you had the banks over in the other corner. And I think now fintech is a whole industry in and of itself. It's no longer an ecosystem or a bunch of meetup groups. So the fact that there's this fintech community and now industry means that you're not there by yourself. which is really important. So having organisations like FDATA to be part of FinTech Australia are great places to be. So, and then the others are a talent pool that's sizable enough that you can pull talent from. I joined TrueLayer in the middle of the pandemic, and the fact that we can build a business, I genuinely haven't met in face-to-face any of my UK colleagues, and some, especially not some of my Australian colleagues. The fact that we can continue to build and grow and have a good talent pool here in Australia is another one.
That's pretty unique. And Mark, I know you are not situated in the same office as I think your head office. So has COVID created barriers or challenges for fintech in Australia, or do you think we've pretty much marshalled on anyway?
Look, I think fintechs have had an advantage over traditional businesses during the pandemic because in a lot of cases we're cloud only, we're remote native organisations, and it's been easier to actually collaborate and work across borders with the technology that is in the fintech space. I know, some of my customers are in traditional banks, and they have found it quite difficult to firstly move all their workforce to working from home, and then to actually keep the collaboration levels how they were when they were in the office. So I think, yeah, fintechs definitely have an advantage in that area.
Which leads me right into the next question. Thank you very much for setting up that perfect segue. So I was going to say, Mark, your company Biz is an integral member of the standards and technology working groups as part of the Treasury Department and the data standards body. Collaboration is often touted as being a key ingredient amongst industry participants, such as, Biz are volunteering their time and expertise. Do you think collaboration has played a role in Australia's continuing growth and success, such as this global index of the FinTech 100?
Yeah, definitely, Jamie. I think, again, it comes down to, like Brenton was saying, about the skills and the technology capabilities in the industry. And there's no one really that knows everything in this space. It's been a collaborative effort because you've got people like Bizza who are very focused on, especially the security pieces and the way to get the APIs working in a very performant way. You've got other people who are coming at it from the customer experience point of view and keeping the customer at the forefront of the standards. And then you've got the banks who are looking at not only from their point of view, but also how they can build their business cases to not just deliver compliance services, but look into the future and see what type of capabilities should be in the CDR. So absolutely, I think it's been a real team effort from the industry. Certainly there's been a lot of backwards and forwards and some certain vested interests involved, as you would always find in these instances. But I think so far it's worked very well, and we can see that from the numbers that are coming on board and the sort of interesting offerings that are coming out now for customers.
Thanks very much, Mark. Tanya, let's put you on the hot seat again. With many fintechs building and registering products designed to empower consumers, we often call them the mums and dads of society, if you like. Can you take us through CAPE's decision to focus on delivering solutions to business?
Yeah, no, from a CAPE's perspective, we see that from an overall Australia perspective, there's a really high adoption rate of fintech products, with over 58% of Australians kind of really, so it is a ripe environment for that fintech adoption. And from a small business perspective, we really do see that segment of the market as being underserviced at this point in time. And when you look at SMEs as a whole, they actually record the highest value of transactions per business in Australia. So they are a big segment of the market. And with there isn't, to the extent where there is not a lot of businesses that are positioning to support them in their needs. And so we find that a really attractive segment of the market, and to the extent where we can really help them and their businesses managing their working capital and really set them up for success.
Yeah, look, I think that that SME, particularly SME lending, has often been highly criticised in our market. If you don't have traditional bricks and mortar as collateral, it's been deemed as difficult to get access to products. That is changing, and brands such as Cape are very much at the forefront of that.
Exactly,
Brenton.
and especially even in, before you move on, especially in the regards to, we've heard stories of small businesses that have tried to get a corporate card for their employees to help them support small spends, and to the extent where because they don't either have enough trading history or enough working capital or enough assets in the business, then you tend to find the business owners or founders needing to put down personal guarantees in order to do that. And so that's really where we see the opportunity, is to be able to, particularly using the open banking and have more tailored credit decisioning engines, to be able to really allow and offer the right amount of credit to help support those businesses in a very short period. So a very quick credit decisioning and onboarding process. So instead of months and weeks trying to get a product, that will be able to hopefully offer something within a few minutes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Reducing the need to bootstrap will obviously assist those businesses to grow and flourish. Brenton, spotlight's on you now. So Sydney has got the majority share of banking and fintechs in Australia, statistically. Now, I'm not saying Brisbane and Melbourne don't have our share, we certainly do. But geographically, Sydney is often touted as being a good base from which to explore other states and also other countries such as New Zealand. Is it necessary, in your opinion, to have staff in each and every jurisdiction, or can it be covered from Sydney as a base?
This is a good one. I mean, yes and no. I think we've all got probably different opinions on this one. I mean, because also what Sydney, Tanya, I'm not sure where you are. I'm not sure if you're out in Manly as well, but yeah. So, I mean, I think this is the other thing is, like, Jamie, you're up in Brizzy, and Mark, you're down in Melbourne. So, I think we've got the ability to be wherever we are in the pandemic. But what I would say is that, where is your customer? And, we are going to go back to some sort of COVID normal environment where you are needing to interact with your customers ultimately. And the reality is Sydney is the financial services hub in Australia. So for an open banking player, intermediary, I think it's essential that we are here. We've set up here because, I lead the business here, and I'm here as a big component thereof, but we've got team members in Hong Kong and New Zealand and Adelaide and in Melbourne, and people applying from all across the country. So I think one thing we've done is we've gone default remote as a business rather than going back and having default in the office. So that means you're actually going to have more people the ability to be able to work and to feel included. And that was a big thing. Previously, if you were the remote worker, you always felt left out. And so I think that's what I was saying, kind of yes and no. I think yes, from a customer presence perspective, but no, because I think I agree with Mark that fintechs, we've got the wonderful tools to, as long as you're not using Microsoft Teams, I think that's probably the, that's the one that doesn't seem to work very well. But, the G Suite products and every other collaboration tool, I think you can really get out there and collaborate and continue to do work.
I think I just need to say that this session is not sponsored by Google or anybody else, just in case we get in trouble there. But Brenton, let's look at it from a different perspective. If you're an international looking to come into this region, can you enter Australia without actual boots on the ground?
No, I'm pretty firm on that one. I mean, TrueLayer did this when we started, and my colleague Marie was kind of the conduit into that, and she kind of led a lot of the policy decisions. I think there's a timing aspect for a period you can do, but we do speak Australian in Australia. Right, that's the reality, and that's a multicultural and diverse language. But what I'd say is the networks and the way we do things is actually unique. It's important to be able to have people in here. The other thing is relying on a team in the UK for us to do development and integration work just doesn't work. So, we've built our own product and engineering team here on purpose because our customers expect the ability to be able to work directly with the people who are building the product. It's very difficult to have cross-border integrations, and Australians will only so far stay up late to do an integration, right? So, unless you've got a very, very big name in front of you, that would justify someone kind of doing these late night integration works or incredibly early morning works. I think that's really important. So you need to be where your customer is, and I think you need to have an operational presence.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, operations is one side, sales is something different. If you think somebody won't stay up late at night for a release or an integration, they're certainly not going to stay up late for a sales call. I know that from experience.
And just to add to that, like, we're a technology company. We're building technology to make developers' lives easier, right, for open banking. It would be very weird of us to then say, oh, by the way, here's some amazing software. You have to integrate it the times that work for us. it wouldn't follow on that same developer experience that we're trying to put out to the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, still keeping the global theme, I think we have all heard, we know all around the world, people are watching Australia. We're a bit of a fishbowl at the moment. They're trying to work out what's going to happen next, how CDR is going to change our landscape. I know I'm taking inbound inquiries personally on a weekly basis now from people looking to take advantage of what's seen as a really stable, encouraging and fairly affluent region. Mark, at Visa, are you starting to see that sort of inbound inquiry from other parts of the world?
Yes, we are, absolutely. I think there's a number of reasons for that. The first is that, like you say, it's really been now over 12 months that Australia's been operating with the CDR in banking, and we're now moving into those other industries that I mentioned before. So we've built up the expertise, we've built up the technology and security, and also the user experience expertise that other jurisdictions can look to and say, well, we don't need to reinvent the wheel in a lot of cases. In terms of Visa ourselves, yes, we've been very vocal in the collaboration piece on the specification process, but also in international standards bodies like the OpenID Foundation. And we're now globally known as a company that understands open banking, the CDR, and secure data sharing through APIs, which is a great place to be. And I think it's great for Australia to have this kudos, and it's great for our technology landscape that we can now start to export some of that capability and experience to the world.
That's an interesting point. So we're not just looking at businesses looking to come into Australia to capitalise. We're also starting to get inquiries from other jurisdictions wanting to learn from Australia's experience. Brenton, are you obviously receiving some international or inbound inquiries into people wanting to come into this region?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's TrueLayer's value proposition, the cross-border single integration to help companies, integrate. We abstract all the complexity in the back end, both regulatory and technological. I often say we're like the giant power board where we've plugged in all of the banks into the back end, and we provide that single plug to our tech companies in a simple way. But yeah, I mean, that's our sweet spot to really help that cross-border, and we're doing 15 markets in parallel at the moment. So there's a lot of plugs and a lot of complexity for us to sort out. And I think that's actually the thing that we've learned, is that's where the difficulty is, because actually doing this in a market-to-market sense, if you're just building a CDR connector like that's the easy bit. It's trying to do that at a global scale is a lot harder.
I hope you've got a good surge protector on that power board. That sounds very complicated. Tanya, obviously being an Australian-based fintech, are you starting to see interest potentially from other jurisdictions for your product as well, or are you purely focused on the Australian region at this stage?
We're at this stage purely focused on the Australian region. So Cape is just a little over a year old, and so we're just leading up to our product launch. And so the initial rollout of the business is definitely focused on Australian businesses. But yeah, so that's where we're at. But I think there definitely is lots of opportunity going forward to expand into other regions.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. We are aware that everybody is watching us in that fishbowl, as I said, but it's part of the Australian character is to be constantly looking out and trying to work out where you can go next in this big wide world. And I think because of our geographical uniqueness, we do look out in all directions and see nothing but opportunity. So really, I think there's two last questions, and I'm going to ask you each these same questions. So consumer data right, we've been talking about it here for the better part of three plus years. We're more than 12 months in. Mark, starting with you, are we there yet? Is it built? Is it ready to go? Where do you think we are on that journey?
Yeah, Jamie, how long have we got?
Yeah.
So absolutely, we're well on the way, but as we've talked about, there is action initiation, especially payments, to come into the specification, which should hopefully be in the next 18 months or so. And that's certainly something that BIS has done a lot of work in already. On top of that, you've got the ability then to bring new data recipient participants into the ecosystem, which is really going to help the capabilities for customers to take advantage of. So what we've really done is in this first phase, put the plumbing in place. And hopefully on top of the plumbing, we can start to build the properties that customers can buy from and make use of. And then the other piece, of course, is expanding into other industries and bringing them on board. So then customers have a much broader view of their data usage, what sort of fees and charges they're paying, and how they can actually reduce the cost of living.
Yeah, well said. I like to say we're about 2 miles into the marathon, and it's easy to say, what haven't we done all the hard work? I think you always do the hard work in the first couple of miles. But when I say the marathon, I'm talking all the verticals, the action initiation, everything bedded down. So we're just starting to really get going on this white knuckles, amusement park ride that we call the consumer data right. Brenton, if I ask you the same question, are we there yet?
It's hard to back it up after you've already kind of given it. We're almost through the marathon, and if I talk about it in a different way, from a backwards, the consumer data and right, we've done the right bit. We've set the policy landscape to give the consumer the right and make the banks do it. We're now in the data phase, and Mark and Stuart and the BISA team are doing a great job helping people to share the data, the banks in particular, but we're completely missing the consumer. So we're kind of at the data in the right bit, and we're not yet seeing kind of the real use cases. TrueLayer, we're soon to launch our product in Australia to help other technologies to get there faster, both from a sponsorship and a technology. And the big thing for me is I think we need to have some sort of consumer goal that we're all trying to hit. I think we talked about next year we should all be trying to see 500,000 consumers participating in the CDR. And I think we would, as an industry, I think we'd be in a really good position to get there. But we're not there yet. And I'd urge us to finish banking before we move into other verticals, because if we don't prove it out in banking, I think, and consumers don't get an experience that works. So for example, the consumer data standards in CX has to be greatly improved. In the UK, we can do an end-to-end data sharing with consent and data within 16 seconds. I think we're well over a minute in Australia at the moment. So, I think we've got a way to go even in the embedded standards that we have.
Yeah, confidence and trust meant to be at the centre of the right, and we're working on it. We are working on it.
That's right.
Now, Tanya, I know you're only at the start of this whole process. Is Kate looking to join the consumer data right? Are you looking to participate into the future?
Yes, we definitely will be. The way that we're shaping our product, it very much leverages the open banking data as it comes online and as it becomes available. And as we look through our use cases, we definitely see the power that it does have to help support not only our customers in helping them keep better in touch with their overall health and how they're actually transacting and spending their data through some of the insights that we can be building out and displaying to them once we get that data online, but also just from a customer experience perspective through our credit application and being able to get direct consented feeds through our application process to help power credit decision engines and really be able to tailor the credit decisioning to the right level for each individual customer without changing the time sensitivity of being able to come to that fast decision. So from that perspective, we really see the power of what it offers in the future, and really how we can increase the amount of conversion, increase the speed to which we can give those customers an answer, and making sure that we are giving them the right answer that's not going to overextend the business, and it's going to, we'll be able to also monitor their credit health throughout that relationship that we have with them. So early days, but definitely very excited about the proposition of what it does hold in the future.
Absolutely, that sounds incredibly exciting. So open question, whoever wants to take this. We've got hundreds of fintechs in this country. We obviously don't have as many banks or traditional lenders as some of the other jurisdictions. Is it already too crowded? Is there room for more?
If I use the CDR as an example, just in our space, fintechs, there's 256 active intermediaries in the UK. Participating in the PSD2 framework, 256 just intermediaries, like licensed intermediaries. So, and TrueLayer does 60% of all of that volume. So what I'd say to you is no, there is space, absolutely, and everyone needs to just be great at what they do. Equally, I'd be a proponent for more fintechs. The reason being is the more innovation that we're having outside of financial service industry, looking into the financial service industry, the better. And I think it's great to see Kate, I know the team's come over from the UK or returned from the UK and to launch here in Australia, because it's the perfect space for fintech to really test and grow outbound. So welcome more fintechs to Sydney.
Yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment, that in the sense that there is definitely going to be more than one winner under each vertical within the marketplace. And it's just ultimately it's the customer experience, and the customer will benefit from that competition and diversity of product offerings.
Yeah, and look, I agree with that as well. I think the competition that's possible with the CDR now really should allow the industry to grow rapidly, and it really is a great stepping stone for fintechs to move into some really interesting spaces with their own unique value proposition.
I think one of the most exciting use cases I heard the other day was a fintech that was now looking at what they could do if they could get their hands on other types of data, such as utilities, energy, and the like. And I know we've heard it from some of the other industries saying, what could we do if we could get hold of bank data? But to hear fintechs now start to say, what could we do if we could get hold of other types of data? And I think at the end of the day, customers are going to be the winners, whether they're individuals or businesses. The right data, right hands, right time is what's going to fundamentally change this space. So one last question for each of you. What do you think is the message? If you could have your little postcard recording right now as a reason for other countries to be looking at Australia or other businesses to come into Australia, what do you think the strongest points speaking for Australia are right now? What have we got going for us? Mark, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think the skills here are excellent. I think we have some really great talent in the industry with a lot of experience in regulated industries, which is essential for things like the CDR and open data. So I think that would be my answer there.
People, absolutely. Brenton?
I think that we've got a mindset to change something and to do something differently. The rebels or the outliers, so to speak. I think that's the perspective we come from, and not everyone in Australia is obviously there, but I think we've got a further proponent of that. Just like those in the west of Silicon Valley were those entrepreneurs who left the east and kept on going west, and the wild west is why it was called that. So. I think the east of Australia is probably as far as you could probably get from the UK, probably from distance wise. So maybe we're those who went far east. So I think that mindset and culture.
I don't know if that analogy, the wild east, Brenton, I just don't think it's going to catch on.
Trying, maybe.
No,
Sydney, the wild east of the UK. I don't know, maybe.
We'll have to work with that. Tanya, on that thought, what do you think the most attractive quality in Australia for business is right now?
Well, I'd say twofold. With just the lifestyle that particularly Sydney and Australia does offer. Having been one of those people that came over 15 years ago on a 2-year work contract and still hasn't figured out a reason to leave. It definitely, from a lifestyle, work-life balance, and also the opportunity for fintechs in particular to really build a culture that embraces a wide range of lifestyles and activities. So I think that's probably first and most relevant to myself, but also I think just in general, it seems like a very curious and adaptive area. So people are really willing to try something new and check it out, and not necessarily, there's not as much resistance to change. They definitely seem to embrace innovation and embrace change and embrace new technologies at a much more quicker and higher adoption rates than I say other areas. So from that, there's lots of opportunity.
Yeah, wonderful. So look, seriously, about to sign off. Australia is where it's at. We're incredibly welcoming, multinational, innovative, competition-friendly, collaborative area. And, I think the sky's the limit on all things financial services and technology based here in Australia at the moment. So massive thank you to the panel today. Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
Tanya, thank you.
No, thank you.
And Brenton, thank you very much.
Not a problem. I hope this wild east just kind of sticks. Not sure if it's going to.
You know what? It's stuck in my mind now. The wild east of the UK. I'm going to have to keep working on that. But
right.
Thank you very much for joining me today, guys.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.